Arizona. It's the second fastest growing state in the U.S. People are flocking here because of its sunny weather, the affordability, and a wide variety of entertainment options, like celebrity-owned restaurants and outdoor festivals, that kind of stuff. The Copper State is also home to one of 7 natural wonders of the world, of course, the Grand Canyon. But despite 320 sunny days a year, not every city in Arizona is a bright spot. Today, we're talking about the places you don't want to live here. And we looked at a bunch of data, crime, poverty, quality of schools, quality of jobs, and we came up with a good list of the worst places that you can live in Arizona. But I didn't just look at data, I asked you guys. You people in Arizona were pretty adamant about telling me which places in Arizona are pretty good and which ones aren't. So while Arizona might be a great tourist destination, the following places are the ones you should leave off your itineraries. Let's get started, shall we? We begin our tour of the worst places to live in Arizona with a stop at Camp Verde, located about an hour and a half north of Phoenix. Just over 11,000 people call Camp Verde home. While the town hosts a number of festivals like Fort Verde Days and the annual Corn Festival, day-to-day life here is no picnic. Camp Verde is struggling economically. A quarter of its residents are living in poverty, and nearly 6% of people are jobless. The median income here is just over $39,000, and the main attraction in town is a casino. Seriously. On top of that, the crime rate sits about 10% above the national average. The educational system here is weak. The schools are all pretty bad. And if you need anything at the grocery store, you better get there before 9 o'clock because that's when pretty much the whole town shuts down. And while the city boasts about being named a dark sky community, if you don't have the correct light bulbs on your porch, you're going to get fined. What the hell? At number 9, we're heading about 2 hours south to Apache Junction. Now, this city sits on the eastern edge of Phoenix metro area. There's about 40,000 people here. The location's great. You're close to some of Arizona's famous desert mountains and just a 45-minute drive from the state's biggest city, but that might be the only great thing about living in Apache Junction. Jobs are hard to find in this community, and as a result, about 1 in 10 people don't have them, and about 14% of people live in poverty. So, yeah, the houses are cheap, but not a lot of people can afford them. The schools are below average, and they're also struggling financially. The school district was recently named a high financial risk by the state because kids are dropping out, and they can't pass a bond or budget override in more than 15 years, so the district's all broke. Some people living here say their town's an eyesore. There's abandoned properties and garbage everywhere. They say there's nothing to do for kids and teens, and drugs are becoming a huge problem. People also complain about no public transportation. At number 8, located on the west side of Phoenix, is Tolleson, home to about 7,300 people. Tolleson sits just off of I-10 and is about a 20-minute drive into Phoenix. The population here is predominantly Hispanic, and the city holds several festivals throughout the year to celebrate its residents' Latino roots. But there's not much to celebrate here economically. Wages in the area just aren't enough to provide a stable standard of living. Most households here make only about $45K, and 1 in 5 people is struggling below the poverty line. I think we're starting to see a trend. And Tolleson is far from safe. In fact, the total crime rate here is the highest in the state and about 4 times higher than the national average. People here have a 1 in 11 chance of being the victim of a property crime. That's a lot of broken windows and stolen cell phones. And violent crime is also a pretty big problem, considering Tolleson is such a small city. The schools here are just about as bad as it gets in Arizona. 3 in 10 people here never finished high school. What is happening in Tolleson? But the downtown area is actually pretty cool. The city did a huge downtown makeover a few years back, and now there's a water feature and free Wi-Fi and a bunch of local shops and restaurants. Good for you, Tolleson. Keep trying. At number 7, Coolidge, located about halfway between Phoenix and Tucson. Coolidge is home to about 13,000 people, and it was named after the 30th president of the U.S., Calvin Coolidge. The city has the Casa Grande Ruins National Monument. It's the first historic site to receive protective status from the U.S. government. But people living here feel far from protected. Coolidge isn't safe. Residents have a 1 in 32 chance of being robbed every year. And even scarier, the city had the second highest murder rate in all of Arizona. What is going on? On top of that, people here are struggling financially. About 13% of people are jobless, and more than 18% of people live in poverty. Homes here are the 8th cheapest in the state, and it just seems like people don't want to work. In fact, A Coolidge man recently faked his own kidnapping just to get out of going to work. Seriously, he tied his hands together and stuffed a bandana in his mouth just so he didn't have to go to work. What is happening in Coolidge? Go to work. At number 6 on our list, South Tucson, located, you guessed it, south of Tucson. It's home to just over 5,600 people. So why did this little 1.2 square mile city make our list? Well, for the most part, the people living in South Tucson are just broke. About a third of the residents here are getting food stamps, and 14% don't have jobs. The median income is just below $25,000. That's just about as low as it gets in the whole state. And the home values are the worst in the state. Things are bleak in South Tucson. It's kind of tough to find a job, and the work you can get doesn't pay the bills. On top of that, 40% of people here never finished high school, and only 5% of people went to college. And 1 in 4 people here doesn't have health insurance. But despite all the negatives, there is a strong sense of community in South Tucson. And if you're looking for authentic Mexican food, this place has some of the best. In fact, former President Bill Clinton dined at a restaurant here, and the president's plate is still on the menu. At number 5 on our list, we have Winslow, about an hour west of Flagstaff. If you're an Eagles fan, you've likely heard of this place because of that song. Winslow has a lot of stuff here to remind you that the Eagles sang about him once. But that may be the only fine side to see here. The economy is struggling in Winslow. About a quarter of the town's 9,500 residents lives below the poverty line, and a lot of households here make between 30 and 40 grand, which is not a lot. Winslow has the second worst home values in the state at just over $92,000, and that might sound good, but homes are cheap for a reason, folks. Crime here is also an issue. Winslow's crime rate is 145% above the national average. People living here have a 1 in 75 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, and a 1 in 21 chance of being robbed every year. So you better watch your back in Winslow. The schools are mediocre here, and the drugs are becoming a problem too. The county estimates the meth problem here costs taxpayers $9 million per year, and they estimate 10% of teens in this county have tried meth. What is going on in Winslow? And what is going on in America, people? At number 4 on our list, San Luis, located in the southwest corner of the state, adjacent to the Colorado River and right next to the Mexican border. Nearly 33,000 people call San Luis home. While it's pretty cool that you can cross over to Mexico to grab dinner, San Luis is not somewhere you want to live. The city has the worst unemployment rate in the whole state, where about 1 in 6 people doesn't work. And unless you can get a job at the school district, or the prison, or Walmart, good luck finding a job. There just aren't very many opportunities here. On top of that, a quarter of the population lives in poverty, and home values are terrible. Not only that, but the public schools here in San Luis are underfunded. No real surprise there. I mean, the kids only get about $7 grand each per year. That's about half the national average. It seems the educational issues span way back. Decades we're talking, because half the people here never completed high school, and hardly anybody here has ever been to college. Crime really isn't too terrible here, but probably because there's a lot of border patrol agents all over. So that's a plus, I guess. But drug use is becoming a problem. Over the past 2 years, fentanyl overdoses have tripled here, and that's just terrible. At number 3, we travel to the small desert town of Snowflake, located about 3 hours from Phoenix. Now, Snowflake has an ironic name because the average temperature never really drops below the 40s. So snowflakes are rare in Snowflake. About 20% of this town's 5,800 residents lives below the poverty line. 1 in 10 people are jobless, and the median income somewhere around $45K. There's a glimmer of hope, though. The top cannabis wholesaler in the state, they recently said they're going to expand into Snowflake, so that might create some more jobs and boost revenue. Speaking of drugs, though, they have a huge issue here, and we're not talking about marijuana, rather meth and fentanyl. Last year, there were 19 overdoses here, and in a little teeny town, that's a lot, people. Overall, there's just not much to do in Snowflake, and the town's a bit strange. Snowflake is home to Travis Walton, the man who claimed he was abducted by space aliens. And people who say they're allergic to everything are flocking here, and they're building homes with aluminum foil walls. What the? At number 2 on our list, Eloy, located in south central Arizona at the intersections of I-10 and I-8, kind of halfway between Tucson and Phoenix. Back in the day, this was a railroad town, and now there's 19,000 people here, although a bunch of the residents are inmates. Unless you're booked here on an extended stay, Eloy is not a place to put down roots. As we've seen with many other cities on our list, there's just big economic problems in Eloy. 1 in 10 people here hasn't had a job since forever ago, and 3 in 10 people here are on food stamps. If you're looking at home prices, though, you can't do much lower than Eloy. The average home is about $100,000. That's the fourth lowest in the state, and they're low for a reason. And while the economy here is shrinking, the crime is rocketing up. Eloy is one of the more dangerous places you can live in the state. People here have a 1 in 32 chance of being the victim of a property crime and a 1 in 241 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, which is way higher than the national average. Eloy's greatest claim to fame is boasting the world's largest skydive drop zone. So if you like jumping out of planes, Eloy might be worth a visit, I guess. And the worst place to live in Arizona is Guadalupe. This city's located about 20 minutes from Phoenix. It's less than a square mile in area, real teeny tiny little place. It's a Native American and Hispanic community of about 6,400 residents. The town proudly maintains a strong cultural and ethnic identity, and it sits on the edge of South Mountain Park and Reserve. But although the location is great and they have a lot of culture here, there's just some major problems in Guadalupe. It's mainly the economy. About a third of residents live below the poverty line, and the median income is under $38K, and the unemployment rate's about 10%. But hey, at least it's cheap to live here, right? But the struggling economy trickles down to the schools, which are severely underfunded and consistently poorly ranked. Kind of shows half the people here never graduated high school, and it would be hard to find anybody who went to college. And then there's the crime. If you live here, your chance of being the victim of violent crime is 50% higher than it would be in most other places in the U.S. And sadly, there's just not much to do in Guadalupe. In fact, the place is so boring, a travel blog listed Waffle House as a must-do activity here. But it's okay. Even on a dismal salary, the people here can still afford to get their hash browns smothered and covered. So there you have it, the worst cities to live in Arizona. These are the places in the state where crime is super high and people are broke. But if you're looking for some of the best places to live in the Copper State, it's going to be places like Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, Gilbert, Chandler, Surprise, Prescott, basically all the places where the rich, snobby white people live. At least that's what the data says. So move there if you want to live in a nice place, because the places we just talked about are not very desirable for you to consider moving to. And now it's time for a song about Arizona's heat, because that's what they deal with down there. Lots and lots of heat. How can it be so hot, be so hot, be so hot, be so hot? Can it burn a lot, burn me a lot, burn me a lot, burn me a lot? Arizona, it's like a damn oven. Summer is a terrible time. Oh, Arizona, there's not enough shade. Here it feels like the sun is 10 feet away. You step outside and it's like walking right into hell. I can't leave the house because my tires are melted. 103 at night? What the? Is EG's open? I could just bathe in an EG's right now. My pool isn't cool. My shoes are all goo. How can it be so hot, be so hot, be so hot, be so hot? Can it burn a lot, burn me a lot, burn me a lot, burn me a lot? Arizona, I feel like the devil. The summer is a terrible time. Oh, Arizona, I wish it would rain more. It feels like the sun is 10 feet away. Ouch! Hey guys, so if anything I just talked about upset you or made you sad or mad, well then do something about it. Call your local leaders and demand change. Chip in and help those in need. Make your community better, because communities don't get better without hard work and determination. America's a great place. It just needs some more love and pride.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.